It's time for video lesson number 24. Today's lesson is on simple probability, and that is the introduction to our probability unit. So for today's lesson, you will need your TOC, number 24. You will also need a pen or pencil to take notes. You might want to have a highlighter or marker or colored pencil handy just to be able to highlight some keywords or identify the parts of the word problems. And you will be allowed to use a calculator for this whole entire unit. So a lot of you, I don't know if you've heard of probability, but probability is basically the likelihood or chance of something happening. And you actually use probability all the time. You just don't realize it. A lot of times when we're playing games, we roll dice, we spin spinners, we draw cards. You actually even use probability when you select your clothes. So all of these are things that range from the possibility of the impossible to yes, it's definitely certain that it's going to happen. So all probability, just so you know, is between a 0 chance or 100% chance that it will happen. And they are written either as a fraction, a decimal, or as a percent. So again, we're back to the fraction, decimal, percent. So when you're doing probability, there's a spectrum or a scale of how far. So if something is impossible, it's got a 0% chance it's not going to happen. An even chance is a 50-50 chance. It's 50% likely to happen, 50% not likely to happen. So that's a 50-50 chance. It's just got a 50% chance. So that's like a true-false question or flipping a coin, things like that would give you a 50-50 chance. And then something that's 100% certain to happen is something that you know there's no doubt that it's going to happen, like the sun's going to rise in the morning. That's 100% it's going to happen because it rises every day. We can't always see it, but it is always rising because that's something out of our control. So let's dive into our notes. So at the very top of TOC 24, you see simple probability. Simple probability is just a probability or the chance of one event occurring. So our SOL actually tackles compound probability, so we're going to review simple probability first. Simple probability is calculated by dividing the number of outcomes over the number of possible outcomes. And it's important, since it's being divided, you know that probability is going to be written as a fraction. So again, it can be written as a fraction, it can be written as a decimal, it can be written as a percent. And make sure you write that somewhere on your notes, that you can write it as a fraction. Most of the time it's actually expressed as a percent. So the weatherman, when he says there's a 100% chance of rain, that means that it's going to rain. If he says there's a 50% chance of rain, that means that it could happen or it could not happen. You don't know. Let's jump into our first practice problem. For this problem, we're going to be talking about the chances of getting a certain thing when I roll a dice or a die. Just so you know, if you have dice, that's when you have more than one. And if you have just one, it's called a die. And that doesn't mean somebody has died. It's just how you refer to a dice. Or a lot of times the SOL will call it a number cube. So if you see die or dice or number cube, they're all the same thing. So Bobby's rolling a 6-sided number cube or die, and they want to know what is the probability that he will roll a 2. For every single number cube, there are 6 faces or 6 sides, and there are the numbers 1 through 6 on each of those sides. So when we're talking about how many 2s are there, there's only one number 2. So we put that as our numerator because that's what we want to happen. So how many number 2s are there on the number cube? There's only 1. And then we have to say for the total number of possible outcomes, or things that could happen that we just don't know, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and if you count those on your fingers, there are 6 sides on a number cube or on a die. So then we write that as a fraction. My fraction is 1/6. The next step is, can I simplify it? For 1/6, you cannot. So we're done. You can also express that as a fraction, or sorry, not a fraction, a percent, and it would be 17%. Here's another example, and this one's very different. So for this one, you're not talking about rolling a number cube or selecting a card. You're talking about books and some different options with books. So June wants to read a Shakespearean comedy, meaning it was written by Shakespeare. Shakespeare wrote 6 comedies and 12 tragedies. What is the probability that she will select a comedy? So let's highlight the key information first. We want to know the probability that she will select a comedy, meaning that's what I want in my top, my numerator, because that's what I want to happen. So there are 6 comedies and 12 tragedies. So the number of comedies goes as my numerator. There are 6. And as the denominator, I have to add 6 plus 12 because I need to find the total number of possible outcomes, and there are 18 because 6 plus 12 is 18. So we write our comedies as our numerator, 6, and then our denominator is the total number of things that he wrote, which is 18, and from there I need to ask, can I simplify it? Of course you can, because it's math class and that's why we like to torture you. So we get 618. How do I simplify? I divide them both by 6, and I end up with an answer of 1/3. 1/3, you should have memorized, is 33.3 repeating percent. So as a decimal, it would be 0.333333333, on and on forever. And we're on to our final example. For this example, we're talking about a deck of cards. Carly randomly chooses one card from a deck of cards, and they want to know what is the probability that she will select a spade. Hopefully you've touched a deck of cards or looked at a deck of cards. If not, I put a picture of it down below just to help you out. So the first thing I'm going to do is highlight the key information. We want to know it's in a deck of cards, and we want to know the probability of selecting a spade. So just so you know, this bottom row that I just highlighted yellow, that is the spades. Kind of looks like a little shovel, but that is a little symbol that is on the cards. There are 4 suits to a set of cards, and within each suit there are 13 cards, and there's a total of 52 cards in an entire deck, for those of you that have never touched a deck of cards. So back to our probability problem, we want to select a spade. So the top number, my numerator, is going to be how many spades are there. If I count in that picture, there are 13. And then the bottom number is going to be how many total cards that I have that I'm pulling from. And so the total number of cards in a deck, including the spades, is 52. So from there, I write my fraction as 13 over 52. I know 13 is a prime number, so the only thing I can possibly do to simplify it is divide both by 13, which this will work out. And you actually get a simplified fraction of 1/4, meaning I have a 25% chance of drawing a spade out of a deck of cards. Here's the last 2 little simple things. For this one, I put a picture here. If you don't have a picture, you can just simply write the numbers 1 through 6. but this is another dice or number cube problem. So the faces of a fair six-sided cube are numbered 1 through 6. And that's a lot of the times how the problems are worded. So if you see that, you know they're talking about dice. The number cube is rolled. What is the probability that you will land on an even number? Remember, your even numbers are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Just kidding, can't go that high. So on this dice, the dice picture or the sides picture below, 2 is even, 4 is even, and 6 is even. So I have how many numbers that are even? Put your even numbers on top, all the numbers you have to choose from on the bottom, and so your fraction is 3 over 6. With a number cube or dice, you always have 6 sides, so your denominator should always be 6. And the numerator is going to change depending on what they're asking for. So then, of course, we got to simplify. We divide both by 3, and we get 1/2. So we have a 50-50% chance, or a 50% chance of rolling an even, and we have a 50% chance of rolling an odd. So it's an even 50-50 chance. And finally, the last question. Again, we give you another number cube problem. A standard six-sided number cube is rolled. What is the probability a 3 or a 5 will land face up? So this is a little bit different. So sometimes they'll say an even, sometimes they'll say a number greater than 4 or something like that. And you have to think, what are the options? So again, I put the picture here showing the sides. You don't have to draw the pictures. You can just write the numbers 1 through 6 and do the same thing. So how many 3 or 5 numbers are on my dice? I have 1 3 and 1 5. So the total number of 3 or 5s is going to be my numerator. All the numbers are going to be the denominator, so I get 2 out of 6. And of course I have to simplify. We divide both by 2, and I end up with an answer of 1/3. So that's basic simple probability. You put the number of outcomes you want, what you're wanting to happen, on the top, and then the total number of possibilities on the bottom, and then you simplify. And then you can sometimes turn it into a percent, depending on what they're asking for. And before I tell you to show what you know, I want you to go back to the top left corner up by where it says TOC, or sorry, on the right side, and I want you to draw a smiley face so that I know you listened all the way through the entire video and that you heard everything that I was saying. So it's time to show what you know. Don't forget to log in and take your homework quiz so that I know what you have learned.